Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Antonia Lumley. He's here to celebrate his beautiful middle grade novel, Brooks and Brax, The Undercover Ninjas. Before we invite Antonia into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We also have a great Pinterest page. It's Reading With Your Kids. And we'd love for you to connect with us at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. And if you are one of the many authors who listen to the show, be sure to click Authors. Click here on the website. Scroll on down. We have a whole lot of ways that we can help you promote your fantastic children's book. Join us right now from Kissimmee in the Sunshine State of Florida. I'm really excited to speak to somebody who used to be a neighbor here in Boston. He's the driving force behind Xtatic Publishing. We're going to be talking today about Undercover Ninjas. Please welcome to the show, Antonia Lumley. Hey, Antonio, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jed.
I'm excited to have you on. Tell me about Xtatic Books, please.
Yeah, Xtatic Books. We established this company just 3 years ago, and we wanted to do. And the reason why I did that is because once I came up with the concept of Brook and Brax Undercover Ninjas, I wanted to make sure that I can keep that in house. And so then we established Xtatic Books, and we're just building. We're just getting going. We are really just getting started. We got a bunch of things in the mix, and everything that we do here at Xtatic Books is clean for the kids. Every aspect. So parents, you guys don't have to worry about that. We got you covered because I have 2 young kids as well, and I want to make sure the content is always clean.
And was that the main reason that you decided to create your own company so that you could have control over the content?
Absolutely. That was the sole reason.
Yeah. That is something that we have had over 1,000 authors on the show over the years. And the one thing that is always surprising to so many authors is the reality that when you sell your story, when you sell your manuscript to a publisher, you're selling it. It's not yours anymore. Your name might be on it. You may be getting a check from it, but they can do with it pretty much whatever they want.
Yeah, that's true. And that was one of the things I kind of flirted around with is, trying to go the traditional publishing route. We're a self-publisher right now, but I just really wanted control of my own destiny, and I didn't want to give that up. And we put a lot of work and a lot of dedication into this, so I want to make sure that we have 100% ownership of everything. And but I'm always open to listen to a deal.
Yeah. So let's talk about Undercover Ninjas.
Yeah. So Brook and Brax Undercover Ninjas is a book that I created, and I'm going to tell you a quick story. Me and my family, we were on a trip in Mexico about 3 years ago in Cancun. My brother-in-law got married, and we were in a hotel room, and the bed was, it kind of sloped in the middle. It's concave. So I was on one end, my wife was on the other, and we kept rolling towards the middle. Long story short, I couldn't sleep. And then I was on my laptop, and I just thought about something different that I wanted to do besides construction, which I've done for 23 years now. And the thought just came to me, and it said, let's write a book. And that's exactly how it happened. My son calls it the most random thing ever.
So who are these characters that we're going to meet?
Yeah, these characters, they're very dynamic characters. They're 12-year-olds. They're in sixth grade, and the story starts when they were in first grade, and they're best friends. And this is one of the things that we really emphasize over here, Jed, is diversity. And so Brook, his dad is black, and his mom is Chinese. Brax, his dad is white, and his mom is Mexican. The teacher later on in the book is Japanese. So I'm trying to build a melting pot of all goodness over here. And that's what we're about. We're about positivity. We're about goodness, good versus evil. And we're on the positive side. But these kids, they know each other. They were best friends in first grade. And they were getting bullied by these two notorious bullies called Puke and Little Dumps. And so they get bullied in the first grade, and they run. And they duck into an antique furniture store. And something happens, and one of them passes out. So I don't want to give that part up. The person who owns the store happens to be the Japanese sensei martial arts expert. So they bring the kid in the back to try to wake him up, and then they realize, hey, this store is a front. It's actually a dojo, like a martial arts training facility. And then they beg him to teach them so they can defend themselves against these bullies. And he reluctantly decides to do it. And but the kids are just so dynamic, and they go through 5 years of like rigorous training. They thought they could just come in there and just, oh yeah, we're going to be Spider-Man the next day, and they realized, no, guess there's going to be a lot of hard work. And at the end of it, there could be a prize, and the prize were the ninja backpacks and the belt buckles, which allows them to transform. They become superheroes. Problem is, 5 years later, Puke and Little Dumps, they gather a gang called the Stank Rebels, okay? And so now it's up to Brook and Brax to take their school back, and that's the nature of the story.
Wow, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and the good thing about us is that throughout all this, I always try to see how do we get the kids engaged. How do you kids? Some kids don't like to read. So we kept it a nice, short, fun read. And we sprinkled a lot of life lessons in there, like kids, go to school, do your homework, listen to your parents, work hard every day. But at the same time, we want you to have fun, and we want you to look good doing it. So those are all the aspects that we have in there, and also they're anti-bullies, and they're upstanders, and they stick up for others. Those are the things that we're trying to promote, but we try to do it in a fun way.
Yeah. I've been doing educational magic shows for 30 plus years, and the last 15 years or so, the theme that most schools have wanted me to talk about and address through my magic is this whole theme of bullying. And one of the things that I discovered in my research to try to make my program as strong as it could be is the schools where kids are doing exactly what you're talking about, standing up for each other, saying something. The schools where the kids who aren't being bullied, who aren't being the bully, when they stand up, when they say something, when they get involved, that's when cultures in the school change. So I'm so happy that's such a big part of your series.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's one of our staples. It's anti-bullying. It's diversity. We bring in the martial arts aspect into it, because my kids, I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. They were in martial arts for about 6 or 7 years, and that's how I came up with the concept of taking individuals and bring them through, martial arts training, and them going through all the hard work and going home and your legs hurt and your arms hurt, and knowing that there's always a positive thing that's going to come from that if you continue to work hard and be dedicated. So I've seen it firsthand in real life. So I just brought that aspect in.
So how did a guy from Boston who's working construction, working on the big dig, and thanks to everybody out there throughout the United States for paying for that, how did you end up creating these exciting comic books and graphic novels for kids?
Well, I've always been into art, and Jody Meltzer, her illustrator Jody King, we were friends also, and we all went to high school together. And she was class artist for 4 years, and so was I. So I've always been like a visual guy. Of course, I can't draw like the drawings that we have. I have somebody doing that. I can't do that. But the guy that we have is out of California named Mark Renee. This guy, if you've seen some of the illustrations, he is just so creative. And we're trying to bring the anime aspect, a little bit of that, a little bit of the manga. That's what the kids are into. And so we're trying to captivate these kids. We have a comic book illustration at the end of each chapter for those kids that typically don't like to read as much. Go check out the illustrations. That'll kind of tell you the story too. Mm-hmm. So we try to do multiple things to try to engage as many kids as we can.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about here in the show, and I repeat this very often because it's important for me to own up to my mistakes. I made a mistake with my son who loved graphic novels, who loved anime and manga, and I supported that. I took him to Free Comic Book Day every time it came around and bought him whatever anime that I ran into, and so I helped him get the books, but I didn't appreciate the fact that reading comics, reading graphic novels, reading all these different forms of illustrated stories is reading. And and it's especially important for us to remember that if you have a kid who, like my son, was really reluctant to read anything that didn't have pictures in it, that's okay. If they're reading comics, if they're reading graphic novels, they are reading. And the stories that we find in graphic novels and illustrated stories, they're really deep stories with some great characters, great plots, and great lessons.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we're trying to tap into. Another group of kids that we're trying to tap into too is, kids with special needs. Mm-hmm. I have a character in book 1. His name is Anthony. He's in a wheelchair, and he gets bullied. And Brook and Brax helps him, and it helps him to learn how to defend himself. So the kid gets empowered by that. And he's a huge. We have something coming up. We have book 2 coming out soon. He's a major character in book 2, major character. And also in book 2, we have a character that has autism. So these are all things that we want to make sure that all kids are inclusive. So
yeah, and where does that desire in you? What put that desire to create this inclusive world within the pages of your books come from?
Yeah, that's because of the way that I grew up. I mean, I grew up in the heart of Boston. I lived in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan, in the inner city. But then I went through the MECO program, which is a busing program, which takes the inner city kids and brings them out to some of the suburban schools so they can get a better education. And that's what happened to me. So I went out to Sharon. Shout out to my people out in Sharon. Love everybody out there. So for me, I got to see two different worlds, the good and the bad of both worlds. And so for me, I always loved diversity, and I always preach that. And for me, just moving forward in my life, I learned that, to judge character and not the way that they look. So that's what I look for. I look for positivity in people and positivity in kids, and whoever's positive, then, you guys can come over here on our side, and we're just trying to include the kids and encourage the kids to be as great as they can be.
Yeah. I really love that, that whole idea of judging people by the content of their character, that message that Dr. Martin Luther King put into my heart when I was a little kid watching that speech on TV so many years ago. But we're hearing a lot of people push back against that no, it's not good enough. We need to do more. I don't know what more we need to do. I really want to learn, but it sounds like, you know, the things that you're talking about, where people are coming together, working together, respecting each other, that's a dream that we should still look to create.
Absolutely. That is never going out of style. Let me tell you that, the world is always going to need that. Mm-hmm. It always has, and it always will. So, you know, it's just up to people like us to, you know, just play our part and spread the message, and, you know, hopefully people can jump on, and if they can, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too, but we're just going to keep things.
Yeah. Hey, what was it like when you received that first book from the publisher, when you opened up that box and you saw that your dream had come true, that it was a reality?
Yeah, that was one of the best feelings. That was one of the best feelings I ever had. Because what it did, it took an idea and it made it into something tangible, you know? And just feeling the cover and the slickness of it, and looking at the bright colors and all that, and seeing your name on there, it's just really, really a great feeling.
Yeah. And how about your kids? What was their reaction when they discovered that their dad is now a published author?
I don't think they cared that much, you know. No, I don't think they did, because they saw the whole process and they were probably just sick of it. Because I'm like, you know, I mean, who better to run these ideas through than them? They're in my age group. You know, I'm targeting 7 to 12-year-olds, and they fit right in there. Mm-hmm. So to them, it's probably just like, oh, is this over yet? But giving it to other kids and other kids who haven't seen the whole process of what this takes to do this, they really liked it. So that was definitely. Yeah.
You shared a little bit with us about your plans for this series, and, you know, you're going to be adding characters, and adding a character with autism and a character who uses a wheelchair for mobility. What other dreams do you have for Xtatic Books?
Well, I think, you know, for us, we have a few things in the mix right now, Jed. Right now, book 2 is complete. I just got it edited. I got a couple more steps to do to get it formatted and whatnot. We're still working on some illustrations, but the biggest, and I've done that before, and we've also done a music video by my nephew. His name is Young Pack, and it's called Brook and Brax. We did that 2 years ago, and it's a clean song, clean video, and we're doing it again. So we have part 2 coming out, I'd say probably early November, along with the book. But the biggest thing that I'm excited about is we're going to incorporate some animation. You know, we started doing 2D animation and 3D animation, because these characters, Brook and Brax, they're meant to be a cartoon. That I envisioned it in my head the whole time. Every word I wrote, I saw them going through it, and they're so dynamic, they're funny, and they're very, very engaging. So, and they're silly, and they're a little bit goofy, but, you know, their heart is just so pure, and I love the way they help others, and it has to be animated. That's what I'm working on.
That's really exciting, and I don't want to gloss over. You mentioned one thing about book 2, mm-hmm. And we have a lot of aspiring authors on the show, a lot of aspiring authors who are going to self-publish, a lot of authors who've already self-published. You mentioned that the book it's just being edited right now. And yep. That is so very important. And please, authors, remember that when you're talking about editing the book, you're not talking about handing it off to your spouse or your friend who's an English teacher to check for misspellings and punctuation. You want the content to be edited, and just do that professionally. That's so very, very important.
Yeah, and I have a good one too. Her name is Rosami Medeiros out of Miami, and she is good. And she's tough on me. Like that's what I love about it, is that because I'm looking at some of the edits, I'm like, what? I really like that part, but I defer to her in most cases. Because that's what she does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's not going to just gloss over something because Antonio likes it. So most of the time I just defer to her, and then from there there's a proofreading stage, and then you have a formatting stage. So I try to make sure the words are, the book is flowing as well as possible. I try to keep it short and concise, but fun at the same time. It's not a Harry Potter book. It's not gonna, not gonna take you a month to read. So that's what we're doing. We're just trying to keep it short, sweet, and fun for the kids.
It does sound like the perfect read for those kids who, as I like to say, have a lot of extra energy. They may struggle with reading. Maybe they have some kind of reading challenge. Maybe they have an attention challenge. They want to move on to the next thing. The color, the illustrations, the storyline, the humor, the action with the martial arts. It sounds like a perfect read for that girl or boy who may be reluctant to sit down and read a typical middle grade novel.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of parents come to me and say, my kid, he really doesn't like reading, but he sat down and he read this book, and they love the illustrations, they love the humor in it, the goofiness in it, but at the same time, we really subtly and sometimes overtly, sprinkle some life lessons in there,
Yeah,
that's good. It's a clean way to get your message across, but in a different way.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, too, that this would be, and this is one thing, again, a mistake that I made with my son. Thankfully, not too many, because he's a pretty put-together adult right now. I'm really proud of him. But I didn't take the time to sit down and read the comics and the anime and the graphic novels with him or co-read it with him. And I think that that's something that families should really think about doing. Just because your kids are able to read independently, still they just love sitting down and reading with you, talking about the different, talking about the things that make them excited is a great way to really help them develop a love of reading and learning.
Yeah, I agree. And my kids are big time into it. So yeah, I ask them questions all the time.
Yeah.
My next book is 22 chapters, and I physically had to make them read every chapter because they were trying to get out of it. And I said, no. I said, and I had to bribe them a couple times. I said, hey, I'll give you $5 if you read these 2 chapters. Probably shouldn't do that, but I had to get feedback from that age group.
Hey.
Who better? I got 2 kids.
Yeah, hey, you have to pay your editor and your formatter, so pay that beta audience.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Antonia, where can people go to find out more about Brook and Brax and find out more about you?
You guys can go to my website. It's xtaticbooks.com, and that's with an X, Xtatic books.com. I have everything there. I got a link to the book. We also have a couple of free downloadable comics. One is Brook and Brax Anti-Bullies. It's a anti-bully handbook. It's pretty fun. It's only 6 pages. Then we have a fun comic that we did last year, Brook and Brax versus Pandemic. You guys can go to YouTube, check out Brook and Brax there. We have a music video. We have another one coming out. Book 2 is about to drop. We've got 2 animations we're working on. And I think the kids, once they see what we're about to do, I think they're really going to fall in love with these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've had a great time learning all about the Undercover Ninjas, Brook and Brax, and we've been speaking to the author, Antonia Lumley. Hey, Antonia, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. I really appreciate it.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Dr. Michael Waters. We love Dr. Michael. He's returning to the show to celebrate his brand new children's book. It's called Liberty's Civil Rights Road Trip. This is a really, really powerful book, and it certainly is timely. As Antonio and I mentioned during our conversation, there's a whole lot of conversations about race and race relations and civil rights going on in the country right now. It's a great thing, and families are looking for great ways to continue those conversations with their kids. Dr. Michael Waters Liberty Civil Rights Road Trip is a fantastic book to start those conversations. And of course, Dr. Michael is just such a fantastic guest. You don't want to miss it. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Chris, I want to thank our guest, Antonia Lumley. Be sure to check out Undercover Ninjas, Brook and Brax. I also want to thank our buddy Jody Meltzer. She connected Antonio and I, and so we want to thank her for making that connection. I want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Michael Murphy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.